For anyone who hasn't been following, I'll read this from Front Office Sports. According to sources, after agreeing to pay $1 billion annually for Thursday Night Football through 2033, Amazon Prime Video is eyeing an NBA game package on Tuesday or Thursday nights. The goal? Create the NBA's version of TNF, said sources. According to sources, the NBA is also intrigued by Amazon's ability to draw an audience 7 years younger than the NFL's legacy TV partners. Beginning with the 2025-26 season, the NBA will seek an estimated $50 billion to $75 billion for its next cycle of long-term media rights. The league is still negotiating exclusively with incumbent media rights partners, the Walt Disney Company's ESPN and Warner Bros. Discovery Sports and TNT. But both the NBA and Amazon have been dropping hints they're interested in a billion-dollar streaming partnership. So, Ben, generally speaking, I'll let you take it wherever you want to go at the top. What's most interesting to you about where these negotiations stand right now?
Well, I mean, there is another article in the Wall Street Journal about like, wow, the NBA's huge opportunity to grow its rights fees by negotiating with lots of people, which is actually really bad news because that means that ESPN and TNT are not sort of like going to make a deal in the exclusive negotiating window, which is what happened the last time the rights came up. Like at that time, it's hard to remember, but you go back 9 years or 10 years or whenever it was, 2013 sort of time period, and ESPN's big concern at the time was FS1. They're like, yep. They were in like a rights buying spree. We're not going to let Fox get a foothold here. ESPN is sort of going to dominate the space. And so they tripled the rights fees then, and it never sort of got to the market. And you know, I think that ESPN pays an average of $1.4 billion a year now. TNT, yep. I believe, pays $1.2 billion. This is because ESPN gets the finals, which is on ABC, and you can see in the in their financials, like it's the big stuff that moves that does move the needle. That's where they make a lot of money, and so that's worth a lot. That's worth the extra sort of $200 million a year, and it's been out there constantly for years now. Yeah, just look for the next TV deal, and we're going to triple it again. And
it's like, really been incredible. So to put it in context for people. In 2015, the NBA announced a 9-year, $24 billion rights deal with ESPN and Turner, and now they're seeking between $50 billion and $75 billion over 10 years. So they really are trying to triple it. And then on the heels of all the talk of tripling it, over the last 12 months or so, the rumors about how intrigued Big Tech has been in getting in on the NBA business have been pretty much constant. It's like, oh my gosh, Google and Amazon are really interested in the NBA.
Right.
My guess is that a lot of it is coming from the NBA itself.
It's all coming from the NBA itself, right?
And this is what they're screwed. If you can't create a market and actually create some competition for ESPN and Turner and anyone else who might be bidding on broadcast rights for your sport, guess what? You're not going to triple the rights fees you were collecting on the previous deal. So it'll be interesting to see how real any of it is.
Right. So there's a lot of things that are a problem for the NBA right now. And this is why this isn't just about hoops. It's sort of a broader sort of observation on this space. So first off, they're the last sort of big entity to negotiate new rights, which usually that's on purpose because like it's the last big property out there. If you want to have something, if you want to have it, this is your last chance to get in and for another 10 years. That was a great strategy a decade ago when it's like, if we don't get this, we're not going to get anything. It's not so great today when everyone already negotiated big rights deals for other sports and they're like, we're running out of money, right? Like we don't have an issue, number one. Number two, the fundamental issue that faces the NBA is the nature of the product is a poor fit for streaming. And I mentioned this before in the context of Netflix and sports, which is sports is great as an ongoing generator of content, right? That's sort of a good thing. And so that's been great for everything around the NBA. It's great for podcasting, right? It's great for, it's great for Netflix making these docuseries or whatever it might be. The challenge though is that was a huge asset in the world of TV where, filler content is important. And in this case, filler content is ESPN is a 24/7 sports network. They need to have sports on 24/7. And what are you going to put on TV in February or March or April? Right? Like the college basketball is basically the only alternative, and the NBA, for all its flaws, is still a much better product and draws a much larger audience than college basketball. So and it has all the knock-on effects of we have to fill Sports Center, we have to fill our talk shows, like all these sorts of things. This has always been the NBA sort of ace in the hole, which is, look, we get we're not the NFL, but where else are you going to go for the rest of the year?
There's only one NFL draft, and otherwise you're just sort of waiting for 8 months for football to come back.
That's right, and so this is a time period where people are at home and they want something to watch. Right, it's cold outside, and so this has always been what the NBA has offered. And so this bit about being filler content sounds like an insult, but it's actually really powerful. It's actually a really good thing. You fill inventory. And the issue with streaming is it's not an issue where you do need filler content on streaming, right? You want to always have something to watch. And we've talked about Netflix's filler content, but the sort of filler content you want on streaming is the exact opposite of the kind of filler content you want for linear TV. On linear TV, you need something that is temporal, that is sort of on all the time. With streaming content, you want stuff that's evergreen, stuff that is not related to current events. You want to be able to show someone Suits from like a decade ago, and you put it up there. It's like, oh, I haven't watched this before, and there's no tie to like the current time period, where it might be. That Beckham documentary, that can be watched for the next 100 years, right?
Yep.
It's going to be fine. It's actually taking a previous temporal time. The whole aspect of it is it captures the pop culture at the time, right? And you don't just get the soccer sort of aspects. It's the Spice Girls sort of aspects. You get the David Beckham just exploding, being this like poor kid and becoming the biggest star in the world.
He had a more interesting career than I realized, just for the record. Everybody should check it out. There was a lot of exploits on old Beck's side. I thought he was more famous than good, but turns out he was both.
No, he was really good, and you get the whole context in retrospect, all the burden that was on him of England's great hope, right? We're going to finally be good. And now you can look back and say England didn't win. They still haven't won. And you could contextualize all
and it
that.
Wasn't his fault, yeah.
Yeah, and you sort of put it in sort of this broader context. And so that content is very, very different than we have a game on every single night of the week that you can televise. And the game might be good, it might not be good, whatever it might be, but at least it's on. And so when we're shifting to this world, suddenly this filler, it's no longer good filler content. And what actually matters, what is actually meaningful, where is the live sports compelling? It's when it's an event. It's something you're changing from being something that is churn mitigation, which there's something that's always on, to I'm going to go sign up for this service. Or in the case like Amazon Prime, basically everyone has Amazon Prime, like 170 million people in the U.S. But the goal there is, I didn't realize I had Amazon Prime Video. I'm going to go get this app, and I'm going to sign in. Oh, and I've already signed in. Oh, I want to watch HBO show. Oh, I can just buy it on Amazon, right? It's like a tent pole. It's a destination that pulls people into that product. And it's just a fundamentally different job to be a customer acquisition driver. In that acquisition, again, might be subscriptions, or it might be just sort of behavior, to change their behavior, versus something that is filler. And the NBA product is a terrible customer acquisition product, because most of the games are meaningless and suck, and because there's too many of them, right?
And so interminable regular season that they've been pitching to ESPN for the last 20 years.
And the interminable regular season was a perfect fit for cable. That's the key thing. They actually had, they over monetized. They're the sort of like amount of money they made relative to the audience they drew was outsized, arguably, compared to anything else, just because they were sort of the best possible product for huge portions of the calendar for entities that had to fill time. Now today, the entities, they want to fill time with stuff that is timeless, which are not sort of live games. And what they need and what sports can offer is a way to acquire new customers and to change customer behavior. And the NBA is just not that compelling in that regard. You sort of have the ratings on here, even just last night, 2.8, 2.9, million viewers for the opening night of the season with the return, reigning NBA champs and three of their biggest marquee teams with the biggest stars. Yeah.
Steph.
And baseball, of all sports, is outdrawing them by 3. Now, again, you had a collision of markets, both Phoenix markets. It's the NLCS. It's much more meaningful, but it doesn't change the fact that this is not it's not a must-see TV, right? There's
and that's the tricky spot that the NBA finds itself in is over the weekend I told somebody that the NBA rights are the Tobias Harris of streaming products because number one, they're going to be way overpriced. And number two, Tobias Harris is not quite a small forward, but he's also not quite a power forward. And the NBA is sort of the same situation where you look at the NFL on Amazon, and if that's the analogy for what the NBA can be, the NFL makes sense for a company like Amazon or YouTube because even though it is really expensive to spend, $1 billion plus per year on NFL rights, football is so universally popular that it can make a decent-sized audience proactively seek out the app. Exactly. Football is the ultimate monoculture, and people will spend time on the platform, get comfortable on the platform, and there'll be all sorts of secondary benefits from that. On the other side, what crystallized the NBA's dilemma is our conversation about Formula One and why Formula One would make so much sense for Apple, because a niche product like that or soccer makes sense because the rights are less expensive but compelling enough to get specific hardcore fans trying the app, opening the app, proactively seeking out that experience. The NBA's issue is that basketball works great as space filler for all the cable channels, but the league is just closer to Formula One and soccer in terms of the audience that will actually go to the app and watch a regular season basketball game. But they want to charge NFL prices, and because that's the value it used to have for cable channels, and it's just going to be really, really hard to pull off that two-step.